minutes past 9 Central African time. Welcome to the show. Of course, you can join in the conversation, and you can do this by checking in on OpenView HD channel 628 on the DSTV audio bouquet channel 802, and of course, you can log in online via www.channelafrica.co.za. Now, for more than 3 decades, Kenya has hosted hundreds, if not thousands, of refugees with camps such as Dadaab and Kakuma becoming among the largest and the longest standing in the world. Now, the country is embarking on an ambitious new plan or approach, as it were, that seeks to move beyond the traditional camp model by integrating refugees into local communities and economies through the Shirika Plan. We now unpack what this new plan really proposes and what it could mean for refugees and Kenyans alike, and whether it has the potential to reshape refugee policies across Africa. Let me welcome on the line Dr. Edwin Muchenyoka, who's a senior researcher at Arnold Berg Strasser Institute, a non-profit research institute in Germany. Dr. Muchenyoka, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. So welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure indeed. Now, Kenya's new plan is being presented as a shift away from encampment towards integration. Now, in your view, what makes this proposal genuinely transformative rather than simply a different way of managing refugees?
Thanks very much. I think refugees have been restricted to camps and have been shut out of host communities in many countries, and Kenya happens to be one of them. As you rightly pointed out, you have up to 1 million refugees in Kenya who are sort of in protracted stays for periods up to 30 years, which is 2 to 3 generations, which makes Kenya the fifth biggest host for forced migrants in Africa and 13th in the world. Now, the government has partnered with the UNHCR in
Mhm.
devising a master plan that seeks to move away from this camp regime, and the plan to integrate refugees into the socio-economic fabric of the country is a product of the Refugees Act of 2021. And as you said, the Shirika Plan is derived from a Swahili concept of Ushirika, which loosely translates to coming together. Now, on whether this shift is truly transformative or not, I would
Mhm.
say there is no choice. Camps bore much of the brand of this humanitarian aid withdrawal. You have the UNHCR, which largely relies on donor funds, and these funds have drastically dried up. You have auxiliary organizations and their partners, such as the Kenyan Red Cross Society and the World Food Program, operating at as low as 20% of their usual capacity. So one of the praises that the government of Kenya has received was, how visionary the plan was, because it was motioned well before these aid withdrawals, the so-called Trump aid cuts.
Mhm.
So the groundwork towards this shift, were already proactive rather than reactive. And this, of course, has its own challenges that we can discuss later.
Yeah.
But on the question of whether this is truly transformative or not, many signs point in the positive direction. I just want to point two things which makes me believe this is genuinely transformative. The first thing is, as I mentioned, that this plan is embedded within a constitutional act that was amended in 2021.
Yeah.
This makes it legally binding, and it's not individualized to a politician's tenure. You know how it is when politicians leave office, sometimes they leave with their
With the
programs.
plans, yes.
But when you have the development of organizations and institutions such as the Department of Refugee Services gradually replacing the UNHCR, you have institutionalized the plan, and that in itself is transformative. And the final point is that as the wheels of this Shirika plan are already in motion, you can already see migrants starting to have their social rights, access to labor markets, to public healthcare facilities. They can now work. They can now register SIM cards open bank accounts. You have an equivalence of e-wallet in South Africa,
Yeah.
in Kenya called M-Pesa.
Hmm.
So this already says a lot about how transformative this could be. But time will tell, of course. And without trying to sound hyper optimistic about it,
Yeah.
it does seem like a comprehensive plan.
So you mentioned quite a few times the blessings, if you will, or the partnership with the United Nations Human Rights Council. But I'm sure we can agree this is a global problem, right? Why,
Mhm.
in your view, did the United Nations Human Rights Council feel it important to start with this plan in Kenya rather than elsewhere in the world?
I don't even think that this is only in Kenya.
Mm,
The United Nations itself has put in place what it calls the Comprehensive Refugees Response Framework
yeah.
and the Global Compact on refugees. These were established particularly to help governments implement their migration policies and programs based on their own migration realities and capacities. And you see this now trying to be uh, emulated in different countries. In
Mm,
fact, you have Kenya last week, I think on the 18th of June, Ethiopia, sorry, they launched what they call the Makatet roadmap in Addis Ababa, which is trying to emulate the very same path that the Shirika Plan is taking. You have countries like Cameroon that are also exploring this whole government approach in their refugee inclusion into their national development strategy of 2030, if I'm not mistaken. And you have Rwanda as well flirting with this shift. So in the context of this massive and drastic withdrawal of humanitarian aid, a lot of these countries don't have options. Keeping millions of people who have agency and skills in camps
mm.
rather than integrating them into the economy doesn't seem to make much sense. So I don't think this will be limited to Kenya, but it's upscalable to other different countries.
Now, Dr. Muchinyoka, you argue, at least in an article that you've written, you argue that this Shirika plan by Kenya holds both promise and risks. What do you see as the single biggest factor that will determine whether this plan becomes a success story or another well intentioned policy that falls short?
Yeah, that's important to understand as well what could be the factor. But I wouldn't want to pinpoint one single factor that could collapse the plan.
Yeah.
But if I had to single one factor, I would say funding. And I don't think there is a reward for guessing that funding is a key factor in many programs. We have seen some level of political will and consensus that has led to the amendment of the Refugees Act, as I mentioned. But when you consider that the USAID,
Mhm.
which has withdrawn much of its funds, funds up to 70% of the food aid in Kenya, and you have aid cuts that also affect the general health infrastructure in the country. The health ministry in Kenya at the moment it's facing a deficit of around 150 more 154 million US dollars. So the aid cuts have had a domino effect also in the on the entire humanitarian sector. You have donor fatigue also with other donors such as the Dutch, who have cut their funding by 60%. You have the Finnish, they've cut their funding by 25%, and the Germans by around 53%. But as I mentioned earlier, there are other risks as well that affect or sort of threaten the plan. Most refugees have spent decades, generations in these UNHCR operated enclosures with no or limited access to labor markets and education. To then put these people on an open labor market, it presents its challenges as well in terms of them sort of competing on these labor markets. But the Shirika plan tries to mitigate some of these risks. They rely on a model they call the differentiated assistance model, which means basically that support is tailor made to an individual refugee's level of need rather than just blanketing assistance to everyone. But however, this brings up another risk.
Mhm.
The problem of a differentiated approach is that there could be misconception of preferential treatment, which can risk tensions not only between refugees themselves, but also between refugees and host communities. Some of this tension, we've seen it unfolding in other countries, in South Africa in particular,
Yeah.
in Northern Ireland. But finally, the government claims to have had 75 public engagement fora, across Kenya. But you have some refugees and host community representatives feeling excluded from the design and the broader decision-making process. So there are concerns about awareness and accountability and oversight mechanisms. But this, on its own, is a worry, because public support is very important to create this social cohesion, so that uh, refugees themselves and host societies are
Yeah.
not peripheral to the plan, but they are central to it.
Indeed. Dr. Muchenyoka, I would like you to hold on to that thought and expand a bit as we continue with our conversation around possible tensions that policymakers should anticipate with regards to this plan. Please stay on the line. We'll come back and continue with our conversation at 22 minutes past 9 Central African time. But let me just remind you that Bafana Bafana are indeed in action this morning. I think early hours tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. In the FIFA World Cup. With that in mind, let me also remind you that you can win big with the SABC Plus app. This FIFA World Cup season, you could win one of 4 PlayStation 5 consoles. It's this simple. All you have to do, download, register, play, and win. The SABC Plus app is available on both Android and iOS devices. To download, well, just do that. Go online and download it today and head on to the FIFA World Cup competition section. Answer all the questions and submit your entries. Don't miss out. Download the SABC Plus app now and start playing to win. T's and C's apply.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
All right, welcome back. 23 minutes past 9. You are on The Journal with me, Ernest Pillay, through till 12 midday Central African time. We are in conversation with Dr. Edwin Muchenyoka, a senior researcher at the Arnold Bergstresser Institute, a non-profit research institute in Germany. Now, Dr. Muchenyoka, you touched at least on the potential tensions that policymakers should anticipate whilst embarking on this rather ambitious plan, but a plan that needs to be embraced by all, right? Host nation and refugees alike, and all other organizations that form part of it. What are those, if you were to unpack those for us? As you alluded to the fact that South Africa is already seeing parts of those tensions flaring up.
Yes, I think allowing refugees, greater access to jobs and services and local economies is central to the plan. I mean, you have up to 2 billion US dollars, which is an equivalent of around 155 billion Kenyan shillings, a loan that the World Bank has provided in support of this socio-economic integration back in 2024. It came with a condition that in particular, Kenya has to integrate up to 400,000 refugees into the economy by 2027. But as you rightly pointed out, these policies might ignite, misconception of preferential treatment, and they can risk fueling these tensions between refugees themselves and host communities. We have seen some of these tensions sort of unfolding between host and refugee communities, wreaking havoc and displacement in South Africa. And one would imagine that the Shirika Plan anticipated such as well and put in place mitigatory measures to counter or even avoid altogether similar disharmony in Kenya. So much of the 943 million US dollars that the budget of the Shirika Plan is set for investments into road infrastructure, water systems, healthcare, education in places that are hosting refugees. As you can imagine, these developments are designed to serve not only refugees but host communities themselves. So, in support of the implementation of the Shirika Plan,
Yeah.
you have international players such as the German government through its development aid agency, the GIZ. They've also partnered with the Kenyan government to sort of launch projects that support livelihoods, these livelihood anchored development initiatives that seek to benefit both refugees and host communities. And similarly, you have the British Commission in Kenya, which is also contributing to the plan, providing these programs that facilitate dialogues between host communities and refugees to strengthen this social cohesion and stability in these communities. So this in the context of xenophobic violence that we've seen in South Africa, it becomes very important and imperative if we are to avert some of the unfortunate events that we have seen.
Now, Doctor, that brings me to the question I posed earlier on with with my colleagues as well. Is there a fundamental difference between South Africa and Kenya in that Kenya is dealing with a refugee crisis and South Africa is dealing with an illegal immigration crisis? Are there differences there?
Yeah, of course. I think the temptation to conflate refugees and migrants is something that we also deal with even as migration scholars. But as you rightly pointed out there, it's important to draw the line that in most cases refugees are not really what's being flagged by most of these anti-immigrant vigilante groups in South Africa. Although it's hard to tell if there is any rationality or if refugees would be spared in some of these violent confrontation. But if we look at these two approaches side by side, the contrast is stark, of course. On one hand, you have the Kenya's Shirika Plan that is built on inclusion, recognizing up to 1 million people, like I said. That's on one hand. And on the other, you have South Africa, which, despite its progressive post-apartheid constitution that they now seek to amend with the white paper on citizenship and migration recently, it threatens to tighten asylum laws, to strict work and study rights for refugees. So these legislative crackdowns, which are now trickling down in many people's opinion, view, which now fuel this xenophobic vigilantism. They provide a profound contrast between the two. I mean, one in this case is built on building bridges between these communities, and unfortunately, at the moment, the South African approach at the moment seems to seem as if they're building walls at the moment. But one might say it's difficult to judge how the Shirika Plan would unfold in Kenya at the moment. But it's important to wait until the later stages of the implementation strategy have been achieved. I just wanted to mention that the master plan, which is the Shirika Plan, has 3 implementation phases.
Yeah.
We are currently in the first one, which is referred to as the transition period, where they try to put these regulatory and policy frameworks in place. But the plan is expected to reach a resilience period in 2036. So I am currently working in a project called the POLMIG, where we are monitoring how this plan will unfold, and so it's important to just wait on it to see how this will unfold in the end. But just finally,
Yeah.
for migrant hosting countries, I don't think there's an alternative than to move away from encampment, which is something that's not South Africa's problem, because South Africa hasn't been using an encampment regime for a while. But I think continuing to confine these millions in these underfunded camps, it carries far greater risks than allowing them to use their skills and agents and secure their independence and their upward social mobility.
Dr. Edwin Muchinyoka, we thank you so much for your time and insights. And I'm sure governments across the world, and none more so, South Africa, will be watching closely as to how this Shirika Plan unfolds and what lessons to be learned from this, even albeit at its very infant and early stage. But we thank you so much for your time and insights.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Only a pleasure. Dr. Edwin Muchinyoka is a senior researcher at the Arnold Bergstraße Institute, a non-profit research institute in Germany. All right, time now, 9:30 Central African time. Time for Channel Africa Sport with Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Ernest. We kick off with football news. Now, Norway have recorded 2 victories in a single FIFA World Cup tournament for the first time in their history after defeating Senegal 3-2 in Group I. The victory followed their winning start to the tournament and ensured the Norwegians reached 6 points from their opening 2 matches, securing qualification for the round of 32 alongside France. It marks a historic breakthrough for Norway, who had never previously managed more than 1 victory in single World Cup campaign. The talisman, Erling Haaland, is happy to have made history with this country.
I'm part of something special. Norway is part of something special. We're making history, and I'm extremely proud to be Norwegian.
England failed to find a way through a resolute Ghana side and had to settle for a 0-0 draw in their second World Cup Group L match, a result which left both sides well placed to move into the next phase, but was a disappointment for Thomas Tuchel's side after their opening 4-2 win over Croatia. Jude Bellingham was named player of the match, much to his surprise.
Yeah, I didn't deserve it, to be honest. It probably should have gone to one of their lads that defended so well. Had a couple of moments. It was hard to get in a game, but I'm grateful for whoever voted. But yeah, probably should have gone to one of their lads that defended so well. So fair play to them. Like always, second game fever, isn't it? With England, win the first one, do well, and then draw the second one. But it's okay. I think they played for a draw, as it would have seen them go through, and fair play to them. They did a great job.
And the World Football Governing Body President Gianni Infantino says United States President Donald Trump will attend the World Cup final and help present the trophy. Trump is yet to attend a game at the World Cup, but may still make an appearance before the final on the 19th of July at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The World Cup started on the 11th of June and takes place in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The United States is hosting 78 of the 104 matches at the tournament. On to cricket news. South Africa's Proteas left-arm spinner Keshav Maharaj could join a special club of players to have won the CSA Player of the Year twice in a row when the ceremony is held on the 16th of July in Sandton. Maharaj has been nominated for the prestigious accolade alongside Aiden Markram, Lungingidi and Coben Bosch, and could join only Makayantini and AB de Villiers as the 2 Proteas men's players to have won it in consecutive years.
In terms of winning the Player of the Year award for 2 consecutive years and be in company of Makayantini and AB de Villiers is honestly a huge privilege to be sharing the table with them in that light if it does come through. But if not, I'm just so grateful to be acknowledged in the same category and light as 2 greats of the game.
And finally, Olympic news. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, will consider changes to the Olympic Charter today, which aim to reinforce the political neutrality of sport. Moves which observers could influence future decisions on Russian athletes taking part. The amendments would strengthen language emphasizing that sport should be free from political interference. One would stress the IOC's role in ensuring neutrality at all times, free from governmental, cultural, societal, or economic pressure. The IOC says the reforms are designed to protect athletes and competitions from outside influence and prevent the Olympic Games from being used for political purposes. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The Upside with Poppy Jongwana and Sakomhlanga.
I have one question for you.
Oh, this question that you keep asking.
Would you rather be alone than be unhappy? We have our golden girl. She released a new song, You Won't Be Back. Miss Karen White.
You've been here so many times. We love to have you. What is bringing you back? What are you expecting this time around?
Well, I mean, what's bringing me back is the love. South Africa continues to hold me, and I love it, and I'm thankful. I tell people that you guys chose me, and I don't take it for granted.
It's something we were joking about earlier, that your Sunday only started when Superwoman by Karen White started playing.
I'm so grateful for that because it's such a special honor, to the music, to the legacy, and just to empowerment for women. I love the fact that it's been handed down, and it's a tradition.
The Upside with Sakomhlanga and Poppy Njongwane. Catch it on the Channel Africa app. Weekdays from 3 to 6 Central African Time. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
All right, 24 minutes to 10 Central African Time. Time now for Channel Africa Business with Nosipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Ernest. Good morning. In your business news this hour, the African Development Bank Group has approved an $8.49 million grant to support climate-affected communities in Malawi with a focus on rebuilding livelihoods and strengthening resilience to future shocks. Now, the funding provided through the African Development Fund's Climate Action Window will target the southern district of Palombe and Tolo, which were among the hardest hit by Cyclone Freddy in 2022. The 5-year program, valued at $14.41 million, will prioritize the rehabilitation of critical infrastructure, including the rebuilding and climate proofing of 3 irrigation schemes covering 180 hectares. Kenya's government and China Road and Bridge Corporation have signed a $1.2 billion agreement for an expansion of its main Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The agreement was signed on behalf of the government by Aviation and Aerospace Development Principal Secretary Teresia Mbaiga and China Road and Bridge Corporation General Mayor Yu Chun-dong. The ambitious modernization project will see the construction of a new terminal building. The Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency in South Africa, SEDFA, has embarked on an outreach program to assist spaza shop owners in finding funding opportunities. SEDFA's Luvuyo Jongile says successful applicants will benefit from $30.2 million spaza shop support fund set aside by the department.
We are now getting to the next stage, which is going out on an outreach to make sure that we invite spaza shops. Last week we were in Rustenburg and also we're in the municipality in Emalahleni, where spaza shops were called in. We are dispatching our mobile vehicles to also try and get into the rural areas to then get more spaza shops to apply for the program. Today we are in Soweto, the Kloof Welfare Center, where we are calling for spaza shops to come through and let us assist them to apply for this funding.
The Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency in South Africa, Finally, the Chinese tech and e-commerce giant Alibaba is suing the U.S. government after it was placed on the Pentagon blacklist of companies with alleged links to the Chinese military. Alibaba has said it's governed by an independent board with no military affiliation. The BBC's Andrew Ochieng reports.
The designation earlier this month came after President Trump had returned from what was considered a cordial visit to China. Yet Washington still added Alibaba, internet search provider Baidu, and automakers BYD and NIO to a list of companies it believes are aiding Beijing's military. But in the court filing, Alibaba insists its products and services are built for retail, logistics, and enterprise information technology, not weapons, defense, or intelligence.
Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 368, and Botswana is 13 pula 46. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 51, and in Zambia it's 17 kwacha 86. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 16. Russia is 74 rubles 46. India is 94 rupees 73. China is 6 yuan 77, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 16 rand 48. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,153 and platinum at $1,644 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $78.02 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa World Hour with Mposi Tole.
David Njumbe, who's a long-serving personal assistant to Tundu Lisu for over 15 years, on the night of 20 May, he survived a shocking abduction attempt just meters from his home. Talk us through what exactly happened on that night.
It is something that happened in my head. I expected to meet such situation for several months since the first attempt to abduct me was 6 months ago. There was a car coming very speedy behind me. I let them go. Instead of going, more than 6 people came